The great starship of Earth moved slowly through the silver light of distant suns. It was one of the first human ships to be invited to the royal world of Lurea. The planet below was full of shining oceans and green lands that seemed to glow under the twin stars. For humanity, this was not just another mission. This was a chance to prove their value to one of the oldest kingdoms in the galaxy. Inside the ship stood a man named Aaron. He was not a prince or a noble, but he carried himself like one. He had been chosen because of his skill as a warrior and his calm nature in the face of danger. Aaron wore simple armor, polished and strong, showing no decoration except the crest of Earth on his chest. Aaron knew what this mission meant. The Lurians were powerful, ancient and proud. Many races had tried to win their trust and most had failed. Aaron had been told by the Council of Earth that respect and discipline would matter more than strength. He kept those words close to his heart. When the ship landed on a glowing platform made of crystal stone, Aaron stepped forward as the chosen representative. A group of tall guards with bright silver skin and long glowing hair welcomed him. Their eyes shone like stars and their movements were smooth and graceful. Aaron bowed to them, showing respect. He was then led into the grand palace of Lurea. The palace was made of living stone that pulsed with faint light. The walls rose high, shaped like flowing waves, and the air smelled of sweet flowers that grew in the inner gardens. Aaron walked carefully, studying everything, making sure his steps were steady. In the throne hall, Queen Solara sat upon a seat of crystal that looked as though it was carved from the heart of the planet itself. She was tall and regal, with long golden hair that shimmered like firelight. Around her stood many nobles of her court, all watching the human with curious eyes. "Welcome, warrior of Earth," the queen said in a voice that was calm but carried great weight. "Your people seek our friendship. Show us your heart, not just your strength." Aaron bowed deeply. "I am honored, great queen. I will carry myself as a son of Earth should, with respect and truth." The queen's eyes softened slightly, though her expression stayed serious, but not everyone in the hall shared her view. At her side stood her daughter, Princess Mira. Mira was young, sharp-eyed, and full of restless energy. She wore a dress made of flowing light, and her hair glowed faintly like the stars above. Mira studied Iran with a mix of interest and mischief. Unlike her mother, she was not impressed by a human warrior who looked plain and serious. To her, he seemed almost too stiff, too careful. She whispered to one of the attendants near her, and a small smile spread across her face. Later, when the formal greetings were done, Mira approached Aaron in the garden of the palace. The garden was alive with flowers that shone faint colors, shifting as if breathing. Strange birds with crystal feathers sang sweet songs as they flew from branch to branch. Aaron stood quietly admiring the garden when Mira suddenly spoke. "So, you are the chosen warrior of Earth," she said, tilting her head. "You do not look so different. I thought humans were supposed to be wild and fierce." Aaron turned to her, keeping his tone respectful. "Humans can be fierce when they must, princess. But strength is not only in battle. It is also in patience," Mira laughed softly.
Patience?
"That sounds like a word the weak use when they cannot win. Tell me, human, can you even keep up with me if I choose to test you?" Aaron did not answer right away. He looked at her eyes, which sparkled with challenge. He could see she wanted to play with him, to see how far she could push. Finally, he replied, "If you wish to test me, princess, I will not refuse. But I will not mock your test, for every test is a chance to learn." Mira was surprised by his calmness. Most who spoke with her either tried to flatter her or grew nervous under her gaze. Aaron did neither. That made her curiosity grow even stronger. "Then walk with me," Mira said with a playful smile. She began to move quickly through the twisting paths of the garden, her long dress flowing like starlight. Aaron followed, steady in his steps. She tried to outpace him, but his stride never wavered. She turned suddenly, expecting him to stumble, but he kept his balance with ease. "You move like a shadow," she said at last. "Not fast, not loud, but always there. Is that the way humans survive?" Aaron nodded. "We survive by adapting. We are not the strongest in the galaxy, not the fastest, but we do not give up. We endure." Mira studied him again. There was no pride in his voice, only quiet truth. That unsettled her in a way she did not expect. She was used to warriors boasting of their skills. Yet this human spoke as if his strength was a duty, not a prize. When they returned to the palace hall, Mira could not resist one more test. In front of the court, she stepped forward and spoke loudly. Mother, this human says humans endure. But I wonder if he endures only words or if he can endure true challenge. I asked to test him in the training grounds. The hall grew silent. The nobles exchanged glances. For a princess to challenge a guest was unusual, almost rude. But Queen Solara watched her daughter with calm eyes, then turned to Aaron. Do you accept my daughter's request, warrior of Earth? The queen asked. Aaron bowed. If the princess wishes it, I will honor her request. The queen raised her hand. Very well. But know this, Mira. A test is not a game. You will show respect or you will answer to me. Mira lowered her head slightly, though her playful smile returned when she looked at Aaron. He met her gaze with steady eyes, showing neither fear nor pride. That night, as the stars shone bright over the palace, Aaron prepared himself for the trial to come. He did not know what the princess planned, but he knew this was only the beginning. Humanity's honor rested not on his sword alone, but on the way he carried himself before the eyes of a queen, a princess, and an entire kingdom. And in the shadows of the garden, Princess Mira whispered to herself, "Let us see, human warrior, if you are truly what they say." The first spark of a bond had been lit, though neither of them could see it yet. What began as teasing would soon grow into lessons that would change them both. The morning sun of Lurea rose like a golden flame across the twin skies. Its light filled the palace training grounds, a vast circle of white stone surrounded by tall towers. The floor of the arena shone faintly as if alive, made from crystal mined deep beneath the world. It was a place where warriors trained and where honor was tested. Aaron stood at the center, calm and steady. He wore no heavy armor, only his light human gear, simple but strong. His sword rested at his side, its edge not glowing with power like the weapons of the Lurians, but sharp and well kept. Around him, nobles and guards gathered, curious to see what would happen. The gates opened and Princess Mira stepped into the arena. She was dressed in silver battlewear that glowed with faint blue light. Her long hair shimmered as she moved, and in her hand she carried a thin blade made of crystal steel. Her eyes shone with energy, playful yet challenging. The queen sat above on a high seat carved into the arena wall. Her face was calm, but her gaze was sharp. She would allow her daughter to test the human, but she would not allow foolishness. Mira looked at Aaron with a small smile. You stood firm yesterday, human. Let us see today if your endurance is more than words. Aaron bowed slightly. I will face you with respect, princess. But know this. I do not fight to humiliate. I fight to show truth. Mira laughed softly. Truth is revealed in action. Draw your blade. The signal was given and the trial began. Mira moved first. She dashed across the floor with the speed of a comet, her blade flashing in the sun. Her strikes were fast, sharp, and full of skill. Aaron did not meet her power with power. He stepped aside, his movements measured and calm. He raised his sword only to deflect, never to strike with anger. The audience murmured as the fight went on. Mira pressed hard, her strikes raining down, but Aaron flowed like water, turning aside each attack. His sword did not glow, yet his timing was perfect. His steps were balanced, his eyes never leaving hers. You are holding back, Mira said, her voice sharp. Do you fear striking me because I am a princess? Aaron shook his head. I do not fear you, princess. But a true warrior does not waste strength. Battle is not a game of power. It is a lesson of control. Her eyes narrowed. She lunged again, this time with more force, testing his patience. Aaron twisted aside, letting her strike pass harmlessly. He tapped her arm lightly with his blade, a gentle mark to show he could have cut if he wished. The court gasped. Mira's face flushed. No one had ever dared to treat her so carefully in combat, as if teaching rather than fearing. You mock me, she said sharply. Aaron's voice stayed calm. I honor you. By showing you the truth. Strength without control is like fire without shape. It burns everything. But guided, it can protect. Mira's heart raced. His words struck her deeper than she expected. She tried again, faster, her movements wild with frustration. Aaron moved steadily, his strikes always gentle, always guiding. At last she grew tired. Her breath came heavy while Aaron still stood firm, his chest rising calmly. The queen raised her hand and the trial ended. The arena grew silent. Mira lowered her blade, her eyes full of pride and confusion. She wanted to laugh, to scold, but something in Aaron's steady gaze stopped her. The queen spoke. Daughter, you treat this trial as a game, but the human has shown more than endurance. He has shown wisdom. You may be strong, Mira, but strength without respect is weakness. Mira looked down, ashamed but still restless. Mother, I did not mean dishonor. I only wished to see what a human could do. And now you see, Queen Solara said firmly. Learn from this or you will learn nothing. The words struck Mira deeply. She was not used to her mother's stern tone. She bowed her head and whispered, Yes, Mother. Aaron did not gloat. He lowered his blade and bowed toward Mira. Princess, you fought with great skill. I am honored to have faced you. Mira looked at him in surprise. He had no pride in victory, only humility. That unsettled her even more than his patience. She felt a strange pull in her heart, though she did not yet understand it. After the trial, the nobles spoke among themselves. Many were impressed by the humans' calm strength. Some had doubted that humanity could stand with the Lurians, but Aaron's display made them think again. Later, Mira found Aaron alone in the garden once more. The night sky was clear and the stars shimmered brightly. She approached quietly, her steps soft on the glowing path. You confuse me, human, she said at last. Most warriors fight with pride. They strike hard, they shout of their strength. But you fight as if you are teaching, as if the battle itself is not the goal. Aaron looked up at the stars. Because it is not. A battle is never the true goal. The true goal is peace. The fight is only the bridge, Mira frowned. That sounds too simple. Aaron smiled faintly. Simple does not mean false. Humans have fought countless times in our history. We survived not because we were the strongest, but because we learned. Every fight gave us lessons. Every loss taught us to rise again. That is endurance. That is our strength. Mira was quiet for a long moment. She thought of his words and felt something stir within her. She wanted to laugh at him, to tease him again, but the urge did not come. Instead, she asked softly, And do you think you can teach me? Aaron turned to her. Only if you wish to learn. A lesson forced is no lesson at all. Her eyes met his, and for the first time, her playful spark dimmed into something else. Respect, though faint, had begun to grow. Above them, in the palace balcony, Queen Solara watched. She saw the shift in her daughter's eyes, the quiet change in her voice. She knew this human had already begun to leave a mark on Mira's heart. And perhaps on the future of Lurea itself. The challenge was over, but the story had only begun. The palace of Lurea was filled with quiet talk after the trial between Aaron and Princess Mira. Nobles spoke of how the human warrior had shown patience and skill, while the princess had shown recklessness. Some praised Aaron for his calm nature, while others whispered that Mira had acted like a child before the court. These words soon reached the ears of Queen Solara. That evening, the queen summoned her daughter to her private chamber. The room was wide and filled with soft golden light. Windows opened to the twin skies, and the walls were carved with ancient designs that told the history of the Lurian people. Mira entered with her head slightly bowed. She knew her mother was displeased. Daughter, the queen began, her voice firm. Do you understand what you have done today? Mira lifted her eyes. I only wished to test him, Mother. I wanted to see if humans are truly strong. Solara's gaze sharpened. Strength is not a game, Mira. You treated the trial as if it were sport, as if honor meant nothing. A guest of our kingdom stood before you, and instead of showing dignity, you sought to tease and prove your pride. That is not the way of a princess. Mira's lips pressed together. For a moment she wanted to argue, but the weight of her mother's eyes stopped her. She lowered her head. I did not mean to bring shame. Yet you did, Solara said. Her voice softened slightly but stayed steady. Do you not see? The human fought with restraint, with wisdom, with respect. He did not seek to humiliate you. He sought to teach even when you mocked him. In that moment, he showed more of a leader's heart than you did. That is why the court speaks of him with respect, and of you with doubt. Mira felt her face burn with shame. No one had spoken to her like this before. She had always been praised for her skill, for her boldness, for her spirit. To be told that she had acted without respect cut her deeper than any blade. I understand, Mother, she whispered. The queen looked at her for a long time. Then she said, If you truly understand, then learn from him. Do not treat the human as a toy for your amusement. Treat him as a teacher, for there is wisdom in humility, and without humility your strength will mean nothing. Mira bowed her head low. Yes, Mother. When she left the chamber, her heart was heavy. She wandered through the palace gardens, her thoughts restless. For the first time, she felt unsure of herself. She remembered Aaron's calm eyes, his steady steps, his words about patience and endurance. She had thought of him as simple. but now she wondered if perhaps he saw something she did not. As she walked, she found Aaron sitting quietly near the fountain of crystal water. He looked up when she approached, but he did not rise. He simply nodded in greeting. "Princess," he said gently. Mira hesitated. The teasing words she often used did not come. Instead, she asked softly, "Will you speak with me?" "Of course," Aaron said. She sat across from him, the light of the fountain reflecting in her eyes. For a moment she was silent, then she said, "My mother scolded me. She said I treated you without respect. She told me I must learn from you, and I do not know how." Aaron studied her quietly. Then he spoke, his tone calm. "Respect is not something you learn in words. It is something you practice. It is in the way you listen, the way you treat those who stand before you. In battle, it is in the way you control your strength. Outside battle, it is in the way you carry your pride." Mira frowned slightly. "I am not used to being told I am wrong. I have always been praised. My skill has always been called great." "Praise can blind," Aaron said gently. "When no one corrects you, you believe yourself above mistakes. But mistakes are what teach us. Humans have made countless mistakes. That is why we have learned to endure." She tilted her head. "Endure, you say that word often. Do you mean only survival?" "Not only survival," Aaron replied. "Endurance is living with purpose even when the world tests you. It is holding to truth when all else falls apart. It is rising again after every failure. That is endurance." Mira looked at him quietly, her heart unsettled. His words were simple, yet they struck deep. She thought of her fight with him, how she had grown breathless while he remained steady. She thought of her pride, her laughter, her mockery. She began to feel that perhaps she had been the weaker one, not him. "Will you teach me?" she asked at last. Aaron nodded. "I will, if you are willing to learn. But know this, princess, learning requires humility. You must be ready to accept that you do not yet know everything." Mira sighed, a small smile touching her lips. "That may be the hardest lesson of all." For the next days, Mira spent time with Aaron. They walked through the gardens, sat in the halls of learning, and sometimes trained together in the arena. Aaron did not speak with grand words. His lessons were simple. He told her stories of humanity, of battles fought not for conquest but for survival. He spoke of farmers who endured storms, of travelers who crossed endless seas, of healers who fought sickness with little more than hope. Mira listened closely. At first she thought these stories were too plain, too ordinary, but the more she listened, the more she saw their depth. These humans, though not as strong or long-lived as the Lurians, had survived countless trials. They had not given up. That, she began to realize, was strength of a kind she had never understood. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Mira and Aaron trained again. She tried to copy his patience, his steady steps, his measured strikes. At first she failed, her impatience rising quickly. But Aaron never scolded. He simply corrected her movements and reminded her to breathe. "Slow your heart," he said. "Do not rush. Wait for the moment. Strength is nothing without timing." She tried again, and this time her movements grew smoother. Her blade did not flash wildly, but flowed more like water. When the bout ended, she was not breathless. Instead, she felt calm, "You see?" Aaron said with a faint smile. "Control brings peace." Mira lowered her weapon and smiled back. "Perhaps you are not as boring as I thought." He laughed softly. "And perhaps you are not as reckless as you seemed." Their laughter echoed in the arena, soft and genuine. For the first time, Mira felt not like a princess above others, but like a student beside a teacher. And strangely, she did not dislike it. High above, Queen Solara watched once more. Her eyes softened as she saw her daughter learning the lesson she had hoped for. She whispered to herself, "Yes, Mira. Learn now, for one day wisdom will matter more than power." The lesson had begun to take root. Mira was no longer only the teasing princess. She was now a student of a human warrior who carried not pride but truth, and though she did not yet see it, the bond between them was growing stronger with every passing day. The palace of Lurea seemed different in the days that followed. Where once Princess Mira had laughed and teased, she now listened and learned. Where once she had mocked, she now asked questions. And beside her always was Aaron, the human warrior, steady as a mountain and calm as flowing water. At first, the nobles whispered. They wondered why the princess spent so much time with a human. Some even worried that her closeness to him would lessen her dignity, but Queen Solara watched silently, her sharp eyes seeing what others could not. She saw her daughter's spirit softening, shaping itself into something wiser. One morning, as the twin suns rose high above the shining towers, Mira walked with Aaron in the palace gardens. The air was sweet with the scent of glowing flowers, and strange birds sang from crystal branches. Mira's steps were slower than usual, thoughtful. "Aaron," she asked suddenly, "do you ever miss your home?" Aaron looked at the sky. "Every day. I miss the blue seas of Earth, the forests, the mountains. I miss the people I fought to protect. But duty brought me here, and so I carry Earth in my heart." Mira studied him. "I have never left Lurea. I know the stars, but only from a distance. To you, the stars are roads. To me, they are only lights. I wonder if I could endure as you do, far from all I know." Aaron smiled faintly. "Perhaps you could. Endurance is not born in comfort. It is born when you are tested." She was quiet for a moment, then asked softly, "Do you think I am changing?" He looked at her with steady eyes. "Yes. You are beginning to listen with your heart, not just your ears. That is the first step." Mira felt warmth in her chest. She did not know why his words mattered so much, but they did. That evening, Queen Solara invited Aaron to speak before the court. Nobles gathered in the grand hall, curious to hear what the human might say. Aaron stood tall but humble, his voice calm as he told stories of Earth. He spoke of the long winters when humans huddled together to survive the cold. He told of great storms at sea and of sailors who braved the waves, not for glory but to bring food to their families. He described the builders who raised cities from stone, not for riches but to give shelter to their people. The nobles listened closely. Many had thought of humans as fragile, short-lived, and unremarkable. But in Aaron's words, they heard of a strength that did not come from power or long life, but from will. When he finished, the hall was silent. Then slowly the nobles began to nod. Respect grew where doubt had been. Mira, watching from the side, felt pride rise in her heart. She had once thought him plain, but now she saw him as something more. His strength was not in glowing armor or flashing blades, but in truth, and that truth shone brighter than any crystal. Later that night, as the stars lit the skies, Mira found Aaron on the balcony overlooking the city. The towers glowed with silver light, and the streets below shimmered with energy. "You spoke well," Mira said softly. Even the most doubtful nobles listened. Aaron nodded. "Not because of me, because of the truth of humanity. Truth carries its own strength." She leaned on the balcony rail, her eyes on the stars. "You make me see my own people differently. We live long lives. We hold great power. But sometimes I wonder if we forget the value of struggle. We do not fight storms. We do not fear hunger. We have forgotten endurance." Aaron turned to her. "Every people has something to learn. Even humans. That is why we share stories. That is why we meet under the same stars." Mira looked at him quietly. For the first time, she felt something she could not name. It was more than respect, more than curiosity. It was a bond, unseen yet strong, forming between them. The days passed, and their bond grew deeper. They trained together, not as rivals but as partners. Mira learned to slow her strikes, to breathe, to control her power. Aaron learned from her too. He studied the way the Lurians used their strength, their grace in movement, their harmony with the living stone of their world. One afternoon, while sparring, Mira stopped suddenly and lowered her blade. "Aaron," she said, "you never fight to win." "Why?" He lowered his sword as well. "Because the fight is not about victory. It is about understanding. If I defeat you, what have I gained? But if we both learn, then we have both won." Mira's heart stirred again. She realized that this human carried no pride in conquest. He sought only growth. That was a strength even her people rarely understood. Their bond was tested one evening when a sudden alarm rang through the palace. Strange creatures from the wild forests had breached the outer walls. Drawn by the energy of the city, guards rushed to meet them, but Mira and Aran were already nearby. "Stay here," one guard shouted to the princess. But Mira shook her head. "No, I will fight." Aaron stepped beside her. "Then I will fight with you." The creatures burst into the courtyard, their bodies made of stone and vine, their eyes glowing with strange fire. They were strong and wild, tearing through the guards' lines. Mira leapt forward with her crystal blade, striking with speed and precision. Aaron moved beside her, his human sword cutting with steady force. At first Mira struck wildly, her old impatience returning. But then she remembered Aaron's words. She slowed her breath, guided her strength, and her strikes became sure and measured. Side by side, they fought as one. Erin's calm timing balanced Mira's fierce energy. Her strength broke the enemy's guard, while his precision found the weak points. Together, they drove the creatures back until the last of them fell. When the courtyard was safe, Mira stood panting, her eyes wide. She looked at Erin, who was steady as ever. "You see?" he said with a small smile. "Together we endure." Mira felt her heart swell. For the first time, she understood what it meant to fight not for pride, not for victory, but for something greater. When they returned to the palace, Queen Solara met them. She looked at her daughter with proud eyes. "You fought with wisdom today, Mira. You are beginning to understand." Mira bowed her head. "I had a good teacher." The queen's eyes moved to Erin, and for a brief moment her stern face softened. She gave him a small nod of respect. That night, as Mira and Erin sat once more in the garden, the stars above shining bright, Mira spoke softly. "Erin, when I first met you, I thought you were plain. I thought you were dull, too careful. But now I see you differently. You have taught me more than any noble of Lurea ever has." Erin looked at her with calm eyes. "And you have taught me too, Princess. You reminded me that even in patience there must be spirit. Without spirit, endurance becomes only survival. With spirit, it becomes life." They sat in silence for a long time, listening to the gentle flow of the fountains and the songs of the night birds. Their bond was no longer hidden. It had become clear, strong, and true. And though neither spoke of it aloud, they both knew their paths were now tied together. The human warrior and the alien princess had formed a bond that was more than friendship, more than respect. It was a bond that would one day shape the fate of both their worlds. The palace of Lurea stood tall under the twin suns. Its shining towers reflected light across the land, and the banners of the royal house moved gently in the soft breeze. Inside those walls, a new story was being written. Erin, the human warrior, and Princess Mira had already walked through a road of misunderstanding, lessons, and slow trust. Now their bond was about to face a test greater than words or games. That morning started with calm. Erin was in the training ground polishing his blade and armor. His body carried the marks of many battles, but his spirit was steady. He looked around at the palace walls and thought how strange it was that he, a human from a distant world, now stood here as a guest and protector. The alien soldiers around him trained with their crystal spears and glowing shields. They looked at him with curious eyes, some with respect, others with doubt. Erin did not mind. He knew respect was not taken by words but earned by actions. Mira entered the ground soon after. She wore light armor made of shining silver plates and moved with a grace that reminded everyone of her royal blood. She smiled at Erin, a softer smile than before. Gone was the mocking tone of the earlier days. Now she spoke with care. "Warrior, are you ready for another day of lessons?" she asked. Erin gave a small nod. "Always ready. But lessons go both ways, Princess. You teach me your ways and I teach you mine." She laughed gently. "Perhaps I learn more from you than you from me." Their training that day was not about winning or losing. It was about balance. Erin showed Mira how humans use tactics to fight stronger enemies. He placed stones on the ground to show formations, ambushes, and diversions. Mira in return showed him how her people harnessed energy to strengthen their strikes and defend against long-range attacks. Together they created new moves, mixing human tactics with alien power. The other soldiers watched from the sides, surprised to see the harmony between the two. But peace did not last. Before the suns reached their peak, alarms echoed through the palace. A guard rushed to the queen and shouted that an enemy fleet had entered the sky of Lurea. The queen, tall and commanding, rose at once. Her voice carried across the hall like thunder. "Prepare the defenses. No one will harm this kingdom." Erin followed her to the command balcony, Mira at his side. Above them, the clear sky darkened as black ships cut through the clouds. They were shaped like blades and moved with speed that made the ground tremble. These ships belonged to the Krill, a rival race that had long envied Lurea's power. "They come for conquest," the queen said coldly. "They wish to test us." Erin stepped forward. "Then let us show them we are not weak. Princess, stand with me." Mira looked at him, her eyes filled with both fear and courage. She nodded without hesitation. Together. The battle began in the skies. Lurea's ships rose to meet the invaders, beams of light flashing in every direction. The sound of explosions rolled across the land. But soon a group of enemy soldiers broke through the defenses and landed near the palace gates. The ground shook as their machines marched forward. Aaron and Mira rushed to the gates with the royal guard. The queen stayed in the command tower, her eyes never leaving the battlefield. At the gates, Aaron saw the enemy soldiers, tall and armored, carrying heavy weapons. He could feel their strength, but he also felt the fire of humanity inside him. He gripped his blade and raised his voice. "Hold the line. Fight with courage. Fight for your home." The soldiers of Lurea rallied at his words. Mira stood beside him, her silver armor glowing as she raised her spear. The clash was fierce. Aaron's blade moved with speed, cutting through the enemy armor. Mira's spear released bursts of energy, sending soldiers flying. They fought not as rivals but as partners. When Aaron was surrounded, Mira covered his side. When Mira was cornered, Aaron broke through the enemy to protect her. The guards were inspired. They followed their lead, holding the gate despite the heavy pressure. The enemy grew frustrated, expecting easy victory but finding unbreakable resistance. After hours of fighting, the ground was littered with broken weapons and fallen machines. Aaron's armor was scratched and his body carried wounds, yet he stood tall. Mira's strength began to fade, but she refused to step back. At last, the enemy commander appeared, a towering figure with a burning staff. He shouted a challenge to the defenders. Mira stepped forward, but Aaron placed a hand on her shoulder. "I will face him. Stand with me, not before me." Mira looked into his eyes and saw no pride there, only steady resolve. She nodded and raised her spear again. The duel was brutal. The enemy commander struck with fire and fury, but Aaron's shield blocked each blow. He moved with precision, waiting for the right moment. Mira used her energy to weaken the enemy's defenses. At last, Aaron found the opening and struck, his blade shining in the sunlight. The enemy commander fell and his soldiers retreated in fear. Cheers rose from the defenders. The gate was saved. The palace stood strong. The queen descended from the tower and looked upon the field. Her eyes rested on Aaron and Mira, both standing side by side, covered in dust and sweat, but unbroken. She raised her voice so all could hear. "Let it be known that today our kingdom was protected not only by alien strength, but also by human courage. Aaron the warrior has shown honor. My daughter Mira has shown wisdom. Together they remind us that strength is greater when shared." The soldiers cheered again, their voices echoing across the land. Mira looked at Aaron with pride. She lowered her spear and bowed before him. This time it was not because her mother told her to bow. It was her own choice, a sign of true respect. Aaron was surprised. He quickly shook his head. "Princess, you honor me too much. I am only a man doing his duty." But Mira smiled softly. "You are more than that. You are proof that humans deserve a place among the stars. You carry not just skill but heart. That is something even we can learn from." The queen stepped forward and placed her hand on Aaron's shoulder. "From this day you are not only a guest in this palace, you are an ally and a friend to our people." The suns began to set, painting the sky in red and gold. The palace towers glowed under the light, and the banners of Luria waved proudly in the wind. Aaron stood at the gate looking at the horizon. He knew his journey was far from over, but he had already found something more valuable than victory. He had found respect, trust, and a bond that crossed the stars. That night the palace held a great feast to honor the defenders. Music filled the halls and lights danced across the walls. Aaron sat beside Mira and the queen. He ate alien fruits and drank crystal water, smiling for the first time in many days. Mira spoke of the future, of new paths where humans and Lurians could work together. Aaron listened, his heart steady and hopeful. In the silence of his thoughts, he understood one truth. Humanity was small compared to the vastness of the galaxy, but it was never weak. Humanity carried a flame that could shine even in the darkest places. That flame was hope, courage, and the will to protect. The queen looked around the hall and said with pride, "This day will be remembered as the day humans stood equal with us. Let it be written in our history," Mira turned to Aaron, "and let it be remembered as the day I found a true friend." Aaron lifted his cup. To friendship, to courage, and to the stars. The hall echoed with cheers. The music grew louder, and the night carried the sound of unity. The alien princess and the human warrior had started as strangers. They had faced trials, misunderstandings, and battles. But in the end, they found respect and understanding. Their story became more than a tale of war. It became a message across the galaxy. A message that humans, though young among the stars, carried something powerful, something that no enemy could ever break. The will to stand, the heart to trust, and the courage to fight side by side. That was humanity's gift, and that was why the stars themselves began to listen.